All right, so we are recording. Thank you and welcome to Panda Consulting's Deep Dive Workshop. This is for Thursday, April 22nd, 2021. And we have a special treat today. We have Nancy von Meyer, a good friend of mine, and she's going to talk about the National Parcel Polygon Data Service and the project that she's been working on for a while. And a lot of us are starting to get excited about it. So Nancy, you want to take it off? Oh, by the way, let me go and just let everyone else know who's in here that we're turning off the webcams, we're turning off the mics. And if you wish to have a question or have something asked of Nancy, please put it in the chat window. Chris is actually going to moderate that, and he's going to keep track of it and let everybody know so that I don't have to keep interrupting here. So Nancy, go ahead. Tell us what you've been doing and what's exciting you right now.
Thanks, Frank. Well, what I'm really excited about is we had a freeze morning last night, and it's April, and I'm quite disturbed about that. But so one of the, as all of you know, that one of the Federal Geographic Data Committee has a series of national geospatial data assets. And those are particular data themes that are critical to the national decision-making and infrastructure. And parcel data has always been some component of that. Cadastral data has been some component of that, but to describe exactly what it is has always been a little bit nebulous. And so I thought, one of the things that'd be interesting to do would be to, let's just build it. Let's just take a look at what do national parcels as harvested from the lowest level data steward to a national view look like, and let's just do this. Let's just do it and see what happens. So that's kind of where we are. So let's go to the introductory slide, Frank, and let's look about, these are the things that we're going to try to look at is sort of the, what is it that we're talking about with the National Parcel Polygon Data Service. We're not talking about national parcel data maintenance, don't worry. We're not talking about national deed recording, that's not it. This isn't, parcel Uber. We're not doing that. It's not parcel Amazon. We're not doing that. This is a little bit different. So I want to talk a little bit about what it is. Why do we need it? Like, what's the deal here? Where does the data come from and how is it going to be hosted? So let's go on. Let's start talking a little bit about what it is. So here's my hypothesis as to what it is. And there's some critical terms in here. So a nationwide, publicly accessible, annually updated web service providing parcel polygons and a local parcel identifier for every parcel in the country. Sounds simple, right? How hard can this be? So we're going to cover the entire nation. Eventually, we're going to cover the, Palau and in Puerto Rico. I mean, all of the territories eventually, I would hope. No use restrictions, no access restrictions. Anybody that wants it can have it. It can be downloaded. We're going to provide geometry and an identifier only. So what you're downloading is geometry and the local identifier. And then a link to the provider information is available. And then I'm expecting this to have kind of annual updates. So it's not going to be real time. If I'm settling a state or I'm going to check the sale of my neighbor's house, I'm not going to come to this data set to do that, right? This is to get a national perspective. So those
Nancy,
are sort of the, yeah.
I promised I wasn't going to interrupt, but I'm going to start right away.
Do,
all right.
Please do.
So I just want to clarify for everyone, and I think I already know the answer, but so it has on here no user access restrictions on here. So how do you think that this is going to deal with confidential information, such as where someone has gone and asked that their information not be shown on the parcel? I know each state, really each county, has their own way of handling that. Some of them exclude the geometry, some of them include the geometry, but no attribution. What do you think? How do you think we might be able to solve that?
Well, I mean, in my opinion, we're publishing what the data steward. The data steward to me is the authoritative source that creates the primary data and does the work you and I talk a lot about with the parcel fabric and the adjustments and the maintenance. That's the hard work of the parcel data, right? That's that data. So we're taking whatever they provide. So if a county removes justice workers or they remove people that have injunctions for some reason, then we won't have it because it's not provided by the data steward. There'll be no attempt to infill where the primary steward feels it's necessary to block it. Hopefully they would be willing to provide the geometry, and maybe not the parcel identifier in those cases. There would be no chance that anything like this would put a person at risk that has had an injunction against them. I mean, you just couldn't live with yourself if that happened. I mean, it's just, that's inconceivable. We could never do that.
Right.
And so you're right, Frank, there are perfectly good reasons why there are some use restrictions. I know that when one of the Supreme Court and Obama appointed a Supreme Court justice from Colorado, it was interesting to watch the traffic on that county webpage. It's like that, the county had to like take that data offline because it was just getting hit so much. So I appreciate that happens, but yep, so of the data provided, there would be no use restrictions, but it's not going to, there will be gaps.
But we are talking about really just minimal attribution that's in here, possibly parcel ID, minimal other than that. So there really isn't any personally identifiable parcel or data that we think should be up at this level anyway, correct?
Unless we all have to have the parcel identifier tattooed. Other than that, no.
Yeah.
Most people don't even know their parcel identifiers. So
good. All right. Let's move on then.
That's a good point. So as we look at the business cases, and Chris, jump in if somebody has a question, please. I'm leaving that. Thank you for doing that monitoring, and I appreciate you jumping in as we need to do that.
Absolutely.
So as we go through the business cases, I'm going to take you through a suite of business cases. So start at the business case, the most detailed business case. So the one off my parcel one at a time. So this has been called parcel pornography. This is the looking over the fence, like what's my neighbor's assessment, and how did that happen? Why did my value go up and theirs didn't? And they put on a deck and I didn't. It's the information parcel by parcel, one at a time. I want the most detailed information. I want to see the sketch that the assessor did of the buildings on the property. I want to see the dimensions of the parcel. I want to see where the driveway is. I want to see if it's fenced. I want to see if they have a dog. I want to see if they have a pool. I want to see, do they get mail? All those, that detail. And this is really sort of the one at a time, the most detailed and most current information that's possible. So the house across the street from me sold recently, and I know this because the neighbor's asking for boxes, so I know he's moving. And it's a question like, well, who'd you sell it to, Tyler? Like, who bought your house? And he gives me a name, and I want to go snoop a little bit, right? So I want to go check and see. So as soon as that's recorded, it's up on the county webpage, and I can go do my neighborhood nosiness on it. So that's kind of the most.
This is the type of data that everybody from a realtor to Zillow and the property appraisers, it's already out there, right? And while it may not be downloadable at the time, there are already organizations that are scooping this up and making money off of it. But
they actually put people in each courthouse, I believe, and grab the transactions as they occur and re-enter the data. I could be wrong, but I mean, I think there's an awful lot of places where these companies actually have individuals right in the courthouse that are grabbing the documents as quickly as they're recorded. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, and we're not talking about this level of data at all.
No, but this is sort of the decision. This is when people talk about parcel data, you show them a parcel data. What do they do first? They zoom to their parcel, right? There's my data.
That's exactly right.
And it's the most personal of the data. So then as we move up, the next kind of level is jurisdiction. So this might be a city, it might be a county, but it's a known jurisdiction. I might be doing a reval, I might be doing a rezone. I might be looking at garbage trucks. I might be looking at school planning. There's a lot of things that happen at the jurisdiction level. And when we talk about the benefits of parcel data, a lot of the use cases that you'll see for the benefits of parcel data are jurisdiction level. So they talk about, well, you have to automate. This was back before most of y'all are born, but we talk about, why are we automating parcels? It's so expensive. It's, $10 a parcel to automate it. Like, where are the benefits on this? And these are the things we kind of talked about. We talked about the jurisdiction level things, like how can you make a decision at a city without having the parcel data. So I went to the city council meeting. I go to town council meetings every month, but I went every month for a year, and I recorded every decision and every question that they had that could have been answered with a parcel map. And it was astounding. It was astounding. It was close to, and I'm in a really small place, 3,500 people on a good day. So it's not huge, but even within our little community, it was, 5 to 12 questions per meeting that could have been answered with good parcel data. So, and we happen to have that good parcel data, and our town clerk happens to use that data because they have a resident that's particularly noisy about the parcel data. So they're very aware of it. And that's kind of that jurisdictional thing, right? So that's the typical what you're going to see. So that's kind of the next level up. That's a collection of parcel data. Again, I don't have the transaction, the sale by sale data at this level, but I have enough information to support decision making. Then the next level we see a lot of benefit analysis is the event project driven. So this is the wild, and you all have heard me rag about this forever. Wildland fire, hurricane, tornado, flooding, right? This is sort of the disaster. The Stafford Act declaration was an early use of this. Hurricane Andrew in North Carolina, in Florida, was one of the first examples of where we took the FEMA accepted local parcel data to do an assessment of the damage, because Andrew was like, what was it, a category 5? It was something like massive.
It was Cat 5.
And there was like only one hurricane that year, and it was like horrible. And it just devastated this area. And that was one of the earliest examples of using parcel data. But again, it's like we see HUD talking about neighborhood grants to come in and improve multifamily housing, or we see school improvement. Can we put an elementary school here? So we're combining the parcel data with the census data to get some information. We're looking at occupancy. We're looking at, are we going to put a park in? So these are very, very focused. Again, they may cross jurisdictional boundaries. Typically, they will cross jurisdictional boundaries because disaster knows no boundary. But they're event driven, and I can define an area of interest. So the area of interest is going to be the width of the Hurricane Andrew's path. That was the area of interest. The area of interest is driven by the project or the event. A transportation, a highway corridor is another example where we see that, and it's very project driven. So the other thing, next slide. So as we go through the other event driven things is they cross state lines. So this is one of the first drivers that we see for some standardization. So this is where the cadastral subcommittee got involved and said, well, let's look at some of these disasters that cross state lines, and let's look at what information is needed from state to state. And that's where the cadastral CAD NSDI core parcel data standard came from. It came from disasters primarily, not good things, cat found in tree, not a national need. But they come in and we looked at those things that knew no boundary. And so power line analysis for that EMF stuff, where they had to come in and determine how many properties were affected by the power line emissions in I think it was in California, Nevada. Pest control, like where we're going to spray block for particular pests. Pests also don't know boundaries. They'll cross state lines without caring. So that's where the CAD NSDI standard came from. And you will see influences of that CAD standard as Frank and I begin to show you some of the examples that have emerged. So again, that's project driven. Go ahead.
And it's at this level in which you may want to see not just reactive, but even proactive analysis going on, in which you might see something like a region-wide bioregional greenway planning commission might be looking at data that's coming from all these other authoritative sources, and there may not be consistent attribution through them, but there's at least some consistency within them. Correct?
Good point, right? So some regional agencies, we see that in the Southeast a lot. We see that in other places, but I'm more familiar with the Southeast. We see it in Florida, we see it in Georgia, we see it in North Carolina for sure, where there are regional commissions that want to proactively look at those sorts of things, right? So they'll gather that information. So you're right, it's not all disasters.
And we see that here in Florida with the water management districts. Actually, I see several people from the water management districts on in the meeting right now, where they're looking not just to go and collect what was, but use it for planning purposes, for looking at these water resources and how you can plan for consumptive use and planning for the future on them. So yeah, it's at this level that there's a lot of need for this existing data.
And this will be, and that's a good point. The water management groups in Florida have also been some of the early case studies that we did with the cadastral and SDI. Dave Stage was instrumental in that. He was in the governor's office at the time, but we had a lot of engagement with the water management groups. That was one of the key regional agencies that we looked at.
Right.
So then as we move up to the next level is kind of the statewide data. So now we're getting kind of into the Department of Revenue. We're getting into the Department of Natural Resources, the Department of Transportation. So these will be state-based agencies primarily that need everything in a state. So now it's almost like a project, but the project is defined as the state boundaries. In Michigan, they do equalization of property. In some states, they assess assets at the state level. So communication assets, natural gas corridors might be assessed at the state rather than at the local government. Railroads are often assessed at the state level instead of airlines. So they're those statewide data sets, they're gonna need all of the state, and then they may adjust local mill rates based on assets that are assessed at the state level. Education school districts, library services is a big thing here in South Carolina. They're always looking to see, do we need to put in a new library? Do we need to close the library? Do we need to merge the library? They pay a lot of attention to that. And Parks and Rec is big. Lots and lots of activities at Department of Natural Resources and Parks and Rec at the state level. And then the one that's not listed here that I probably need to go back and add is DOTs. The whole world is potential right-of-ways from the DOT's perspective, which is great, but they need to come in, right, and say, we're going to put in this corridor, we're going to go around Orlando, but let's not buy 10,000 properties. So can we do this with 5,000 properties? They're going to do a lot of analysis, not only on terrain and how many water bodies they have to cross, but how many parcels they're going to have to acquire. So
Isn't it also other infrastructure organizations, for example, energy companies? They're looking for not just older infrastructure with power line corridors, but also some of the newer ones, looking for parcel information as it relates to things like turbine farms for wind turbines. How do you go, where do you place those, and how do you take advantage of those? So there is a lot of need for statewide data sets and some sort of aggregation there with some attribution on it.
And some standardization as you go from county to county at that point, right? So I mean,
Right.
because one of the things that's really emerging quickly that you'll see in this current administration is a lot of the executive orders actually will have a paragraph in them that says geospatial data is going to be required to fulfill this executive order. You see that in particular in the climate change executive orders. So climate change would be another business driver here. At that point, I don't know what data they're going to need. They're going to have to, what do they need to know about each individual parcel to support climate change? I don't know. It's not my field, but they will eventually need to come down to these state level data sets eventually.
Right.
But let's look at the national data set. And I'm going to tell you that I have spent a lot of time looking at the national business cases, trying to figure out as a country, what are the nationwide business cases, use cases where I need to have a map of the United States of all 175 million parcels at once available to me now. And what attributes do I need about those parcels to make my decision? And what's pretty interesting is that there really is not that business case. It's really not there. We looked at the mortgage crisis, we looked at climate, we looked at solar energy, we looked at clean air, clean water. And while all of those things need parcel data, they fall into a different kind of category. They fall into something called a specific analysis question. So these are more typically one question at a time kinds of questions. It's not something you would expect to see on a dashboard, something that you would see rapidly changing. For one thing, it would be almost technologically impossible to have a daily refresh of the National Parcel data set. So there's that barrier. But there's also this issue of what is it you're trying to do? You know, if you've ever been on a national panel, a National Academy panel, or a National Advisory Committee, or any of these national study panels, it takes them 6 months to figure out when they're going to meet, right?
Yes.
And then they get a
Yes.
subcommittee together, and then we got to pose the question, and then we got to go get the data. And then while we're doing that, it takes 1.5 years to do that. Everything's changed in the scope of the thing. We did a study for HUD. It took 2 years. Well, from the time we began to the time we end, the default rate changed dramatically because we happened to have started it in 2009, which was highly unfortunate for us. But I look at things like, so I'm thinking of these more as specific analysis questions. So this would be, let's look at the Farm Bill, and let's look at the Common Land Unit, the CLU, the USDA Common Land Unit, and let's look at what crops are being grown, and let's look at how are they being paid, and let's embargo soybeans, and let's see what that impact is now on a land unit by land unit basis, or a parcel by parcel basis, or a farm by farm basis, or a county by county basis, or a state by state basis, and let's figure out how much we're going to have to pay to make up for that embargo. Well, that is data that we're not going to be able to just carry around in our pocket continuously. That's data that's going to be, I have this question, I have this issue, I have this question, I need to address it. Now I'm going to have to take a deep dive down into the local data, give the locals guidance on what that information needs to be and how it needs to be formatted, and then roll it back up, right? So it's a query down, get the data, back up. And now I'm going to be able to do my specific analysis. Foreign ownership was a big thing at one time. In the Nixon administration, we wanted to know, oh my gosh, all these, Germany's buying all of the wheat land in Wisconsin. There isn't much wheat land in Wisconsin. I think they're buying hops, whatever they were buying. And there's some concern about what's the foreign ownership situation in the United States. We have countries that are coming in and buying our land. We need to get a handle on that. We do. We need to know that. That's an important thing to know. But we're not going to be able to carry that around in our pocket. That's a particular question to ask, a particular national policy issue. And we're going to have to go into the local governments and say, please go in and mine your data. Here's what we're looking for. Report it back in this format, and then perhaps display it on a national map. But they're going to be question by question. Businesses in bankruptcy at any one time. Homes in default, housing equity and affordability. That's a big thing right now. The climate change analysis and impacts. What questions does the study panel need to know from us in order for us to be able to answer their questions? What are the impacts? What are the changes that they're trying to measure? What factors do they need to garner? Blight analysis and reinvestment. We had a big thing with blight during the Obama administrations with, how can we, with the TARP Act, we were going to do some reinvestment and fix some of the blight situations. Again, may cross county boundaries, may cross state boundaries. It may be regional, it may be related to demographics, it may be related to disasters that never recovered. We don't, what are the factors we want to look at? What data do we need? Again, a request down and a request back, and the data comes back up. So you could say that that's a national business case, but knowing what attributes to carry to answer all of those questions and to carry all of those attributes current on a national scale continuously on a dashboard, not happening. I'm sorry. I hate to disappoint you all, but it's not going to happen.
I agree, because there's just no way to do that, because it passes through the normal type of attribution that's being collected by these agencies. It's much more than that.
It's a bridge too far. It's just a bridge too far.
I agree. So it's at this point, and maybe we need to take a break here for a minute and ask, is there anyone in the audience that can think of a national business case that we haven't thought of yet, or that Nancy hasn't listed here? And I know we've got some people here. We've got Esri's rep here. We've got some of the Water Management District reps here. can you go and put in the chat window, have we thought of any national business cases for that level of detail on a national basis? Um,
And let me
and
constrain your response, just to make this difficult. This has to be an ongoing use case so that it's something that we could collect the attributes, keep them current, and persist them, right? Not a one-time question, but what do we need to know consistently?
yeah, I don't see anything in there yet.
There's nothing in the chat as of right now.
Okay.
But we'll take, think about it, and as you run across things, let us know. I mean, there are. I'm always curious. I'm always curious. So we're always up for some. We're always up to hear. We're always up for input. Love discussion. I love. Prove me wrong. I'm always happy to be proven wrong on this point. So if we go to the next slide, what I did is this is one of those infographic. They're borderline nonsensical, and they're but I kind of wanted to give the impression of a descending curve. So we need the most detailed currency and accuracy at the smallest coverage. So this is sort of a few GIS folks, those of us on this call, this is kind of mind-numbingly simple, but sometimes you'd be surprised how many decision makers do not understand this. But we need the most, not to I don't mean to disparage our elected officials, but if we start at the most detailed, it was the smallest, the larger the scale, the more detail and currency I need, and the smaller the scale, the less detail I need, right? So, and the less detail I can even manage, right? We have great infrastructure in this country, but not enough for this. We can't carry every deed transaction on a national basis. So what I'm trying to show is those decisions we talked about kind of start at the one-off, and then the jurisdiction analysis, and then the events and the state programs, the national programs, and you begin to see that as the extent gets bigger, the detail, the currency, and the accuracy is going to drop off a little bit. So if you are a land surveyor and you're out measuring property, and you find that a land description crosses a county boundary, and that portion of that parcel is not being taxed by the adjoining parcel, and there's some sort of an error there, that's a big concern to you. At the national level, I'm going to tell you, I don't care. I don't care. You can bleed over on the next county by a foot or 2 or 10 or 40. It's not going to impact my decision, right? The accuracy, that accuracy is not going to impact that decision. Now, if I'm the Census Bureau and I'm mapping county boundaries, yeah, I care. But if I'm trying to ascertain how many blighted houses are in this county, I'm not going to care. So, I mean, I care, but it's not going to impact the decision. So the accuracy that impacts the outcome of the decision is what's important there. So that's just kind of our Bart Simpson. You can't have a good PowerPoint without a nice infographic. So
Correct.
So as we talk about, it's just mandatory, like having a plant in the background in a bookcase. So as we look at that's what it is. That's what the National Parcel Polygon Program is. It's nationwide coverage of the parcel polygons with a local identifier and a FIPS code to identify that local identifier. Now I can unscramble those FIPS codes for you. Don't tell me the FIPS codes don't work. They work. And we can put them together in a variety of ways. If you want to identify a city maintainer instead of a county maintainer, we can do that. It's every place in the United States has a unique FIPS code. It's 5 digits. Every county is 3 digits. Every state is 2 digits. We can make a 10-digit FIPS code that is state, county, city, where the county is 0s and the city is 5. We do this in census all the time. The census identifies close to 65,000 jurisdictions, more than that, but closer to 100,000 jurisdictions in the United States, including overlapping jurisdictions with these FIPS codes. Of those, approximately 10 to 12,000 of those jurisdictions are parcel maintainers. It's a subset. We can identify them with FIPS codes. Don't worry. We have enough codes We have the technology, we have the knowledge to make that happen. So I'm not worried about that.
But Nancy, isn't this, and I agree, um, often we have to go and look at the issues in something simplistic like this to really understand the problem. Isn't this one of the issues associated with all the efforts that we've seen over the past 30 years to try to get both at a statewide aggregation and at a national aggregation of the data? Because we've always looked at taking all of the attribution and pulling it up there. And the arguments have always been about, well, then you've got to standardize this attribution, and you've always got issues with it. And maybe the reality is you don't need to go and aggregate everything all the way up to the national level. Isn't that one of the problems?
Exactly, and I agree 100% with you. It's like one of the hardest things to aggregate is market value, because it's defined differently in every single state. Some states cap market value, some states don't. It's a very, value is a very difficult thing to aggregate. Sometimes you get taxed value, sometimes you get sales-based value, sometimes you'll get historic assessed value. I mean, it's impossible to go back into the data and force a state to change the way they do business in order to get it standardized nationally. And so my husband and I always said, the way you build something is one step at a time. The Egyptians built the pyramids one block at a time. The pyramids weren't dropped in by some aliens, they were built one block at a time. This is the first block. The first block is the geometry, the data steward identifier, and the FIPS code sufficient to identify that data steward. That's enough information we can throw together. We can have a unique national identifier if we need it. We can dive into the local systems if we need it, and we can see the pattern of the geometry.
And you and I have talked about this, that even with my experience on a statewide level, my limited experience on a statewide level, there is existing unique identifiers for every single parcel in here. We don't need a new set of identifiers for it. We don't need to go back and create something new. There's already unique identifiers. It may not be consistent across every single jurisdiction, but within that jurisdiction, it always is unique. So that you can
Absolutely.
aggregate these all the way up with the inclusion of FIPS codes to the national level, and every single parcel is exactly, has sufficient information so you can define the uniqueness on it.
Absolutely, and the other advantage of it is that we're not burdening our data stewards that are already swamped trying to figure out how to manage the geometry correctly and incorporate surveys and resolve overlapping parcels, and what do you do with the gaps, and what do you do with the right-of-ways, and that detail, right? They're already busy doing that. We have the Register of Deeds has an identifier, the tax system has an identifier, the assessment system has an identifier, zoning might have an identifier. Water, if there's a meter on the property, it has another identifier for the meter. We're drowning in identifiers. We don't need another one. So let's take the one we have and make it unique, right? Because they're not going to maintain it. Trust me, they're not going to maintain it. They don't have the time, the resources, or the energy to maintain it, nor will most of their systems accept it. So this is just a way, just be assured you're going to need that local identifier when you drill down. So when you start out here at the national program and you say, hey, I need to know more about this collection of parcels, and oh, those all happen to be in Osceola County. Oh, I need more information about it. As you dip down into your query, you're going to have to give that local government what their identifier is to extract the information anyway. So you might as well just bring it with you. You're going to need it when you get in the door anyway, so you might as well bring it. It's not. That's what you're going to need. Frank, should we take a look at the land grid map maybe to give people an example, kind of a sense of what it is we're looking at?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do
So,
that.
So the Loveland parcel people have been working with us and they've been real champs. They've
There we go.
And they've done a good job. Now, did I get you the parcel viewer that they did, Frank?
This is, I think you're seeing right now, this is their
That's their
standard.
webpage. I want you to go to that other, to the to the link I sent you with their,
Which one was that? I'm trying to think.
so it was in the email I sent. It was, it starts out with the National Parcel Program, one. It's not their website. It's the, I want to come back to their website, but Matt Hempel and Jerry Paffendorf put together this, their firm did, but they put together a website for us that demonstrated the national parcel concept. So it's a great, and I know a lot of you have seen it because I've shown it around quite a bit. What it is it's every parcel in the United States in one map viewer. And I can go seamlessly across the country. It's just a wonderful thing to see the geometry. And what you see is the pattern of ownership, which is just fantastic. So if you zoom in, I usually go around the Mississippi River just because I'm happening to be reading about the Mississippi right now. But that area where Tennessee and Missouri and those areas come together, there is fine. But you can see we're crossing state lines here. So we have a lot of different state data coming in. This is all coming from a lot of different sources. It's 175 million polygons. So give it a minute. It's a boatload of data. But once you get it warmed up, so to speak, I can now see the pattern of ownership. And in addition to that, they provided us with a local parcel identifier. And what's interesting about this is as Frank looks across the state line here, you can see the difference in the structure that Frank mentioned. That on one side of the line, I've got one kind of data structure. And when he clicks on the other side of the state line, that parcel number has a different structure to it. Doesn't matter. You're going to need that number. If you go into that local assessor, that's the number you're going to need to get more information about that parcel. But at a national level, this was the first time in my 35 years of doing this that I've actually seen all the parcels in the United States in a continuous screen where I can pan across that horizon and I can see the pattern of ownership. So I can see how some states take the sections and divide them into 40s and make every 40 a parcel. Some states don't do that. Some states wait until the ownership actually splits before they do that. So the pattern of ownership changes as you move across the United States. You can see the impact of policy decisions as you move across the United States. So it's just a fascinating look at kind of how does the United States look. And again, this is something that Matt and Jerry put together and their team put together for us. That's just been this is the proof of concept. This proves we can do it. We can do this because they did it. They did this for us, and it's a minimal attribution, but it's interesting. And my thinking was, well, let's start with this and see what it looks like. Let's start with this and see what questions can we answer and what additional information do we need that we can standardize at a national level. But you can spend a lot of time clicking around on that, can't you? It's a fascinating, fascinating view.
And just looking at the patterns, like you said, one of the things that becomes obvious is the patterns of both the similarities and the differences between the states. And I'm sure as I move over into the colonial states, it's even more obvious.
It is, but it was striking to me was the differences even in the PLS, in the public domain states, how some public domain states, go ahead and preemptively split their sections into 40s and some don't. And you can see that density. So then their land record count is going to go up. So their parcel count is going to go up because of what's going on. But this is a proof of I've been, they're hosting this at no charge and built this for us, and I've had a lot of fun with it. I'll tell you, it's just been a fascinating proof of concept. But this begs the question, right? Like, so who provides this data? Like who is really driving this data set? Well, in this particular case, we have a single data provider who has gone out and preemptively purchased or licensed or acquired data to give this coverage, and that's their business. That's what they do for their business. But And it's great. But one of the things that I wanted to look at was, what if that data was provided by the public sector? What if the states and counties that have the information, would they be willing to give up the parcel identifier and the parcel polygon and contribute it to a national resource so we could make a locally driven, authoritatively defined data set? So if we go to the next slide, this is the kind of the who provides the data. And again, we've talked a lot about that primary data steward, the local jurisdiction. And don't worry, if you have a parcel managing agency, I can find a FIPS code for it. Don't worry about that. We can take care of that. We've got a FIPS code for it. The data aggregator is the authoritative source. So the data steward is the primary provider, but the data aggregator is the authoritative source. So much like the Census Bureau is the authoritative aggregator for boundaries, right? They get annexations from every single city in the country and build an authoritative representation of city boundary. They are an authoritative aggregator. The states can become an authoritative aggregator for the primary data steward data. I changed the font halfway through there and didn't update it all. That's interesting. So here's kind of what I'm looking at for that. So here's what it would look like. So I'm looking at kind of these state aggregated data sources that are standardized at a state level, aggregated with limited attributes, not the state data aggregator, it can be as many attributes as you want it to be. But when we pull up into a single source database, it's going to be some kind of FIPS code. It's going to be a parcel the locally generated parcel identifier and the geometry. That's all we're going to do. We can get it all into a common projection. That's another thing, is the whole spatial projection issue and the software. That's a whole nother technical issue that maybe Frank can talk about as we build the state aggregator data sources. But we have some tools available to help us with this. We build the state sourced parcel polygons, and then in places where we don't have authoritative data, then land grid, Loveland parcel sources would be the infill for those without a state contributor source. So before we get too far ahead of ourselves, watching the time here.
By the way, Nancy, two things. One, I probably changed that font when I did that migration last night. So don't worry about it. It's not yours, it's my mistake. Secondly, don't worry about the time. I had told most people we're probably going to go over an hour. So don't plan on cutting out of here at 4 o'clock Eastern time. So let's keep this discussion going. I think it's important.
So as we go on to that next slide, then we've talked about the data aggregator and how important they are. So as we have that combined map display from the previous display, and then we have all the polygons that we showed you from the map, from the Loveland parcel concept map. Now we overlay that with the data steward overlay that provides a link to the program, the state aggregator sources. So my preference is to make government work. So if I am looking for a parcel in Arkansas, I want to get some parcels around the Mark Twain National Forest. I can look for the Mark Twain National Forest and look for some general areas, and then I can say, I want more information about this. I link to this Arkansas state program. If they don't have what I need, then that program can then pass me down to the county, because it minimizes the number of door knocks at the county, right? So the county's not overwhelmed with requests. The state will take some of those, but it also allows us to organize our queries in a systematic way. So we're getting the general concept. We've got wildland fire. We need to get all the structures around here. We've got 24 hours to put this together because we're gonna deploy jumpers in the next 48 hours. So I've got to get all the structures in the next 24. I'm going to work the system to make that happen. I'm going to find that area. I'm going to make the buffer. I'm going to get the identifiers. I'm going to send those to my state contact. The state contact is then going to coordinate with the locals and then get the data from the local back to the state and then back to the Fed. You don't want to short circuit that process, because that builds communication, it builds trust, it builds robustness in the system, right? We want to exercise the system as much as we can. So So from the overlay, then we would go to the state stewards, and we've done a little bit of modeling with that. Let's go to that ArcMap project. So Esri has graciously provided us with a site to fool around with, and I am not a web developer. But what I did is I took the Florida parcel data. So pretend this is the nationwide map. This happens to just be in a small geography. It happens to be, well, small. It happens to be 10 million parcels. So it's not super zippy. And there's no tiling here. There's no optimization. It's just raw ArcGIS Online. It's just raw upload. And I've got these parcels. And you say, "Oh, I'm interested in that parcel." Well, look what happens. We have a slimmer set of attributes than you saw before. So the attributes are slimmed down quite a bit. But look, he's got 2 windows. So he's got a second window, and that's the link to the state. Now, this is not current data. I haven't updated this in a while. But this is how you would move click through. I call it a parcel click through. So I could click through from these parcels to the state steward to get more information about this data. I might be able to download it from a download site. I might be able to go to another viewer if I just want to look at it in a state hosted viewer. Or I might want to just reach out to them and say, "Hey, I'm in Leon County and I'm just interested in what's going on here. We've got some flooding going on. I want to know if any alligators are affected." I'm making this up as I go. And you want to just reach out to somebody. There's some more information where you can reach directly to, in this case, the Department of Revenue. But it just depends on what the click through is. And so each state will have a different click through. And as part of a contributor, we would ask you to keep this information current for us. So give us the current, what's your current REST point service site? What's your current download site? What's your current viewer site? As you become a participant in the National Parcel Program as a state contributor, state aggregator.
Good, good.
So this is sort of demonstrates that kind of click through to the data aggregator. Now, the other thing that and this is, again, I'm probably reaching too far, but as we go back to our presentation, we talk about what other potential services could we have here. And again, I'm borrowing liberally. I mean, given the site now, I've abused the donation, but if we look at the other potential services on the next slide, I'm thinking about these kinds of services, right? I'm thinking once you're registered as a state aggregator, we send you an email reminder every year that says, and it's going to be different every year because, North Carolina is March, Wisconsin is July, Florida is November. Every state has a different update cycle. Michigan's twice a year, New York is a calendar year. So depending on when your custom year expires, you would get an email reminder that says, "Hey, we haven't heard from you in a year. We'd like to get your updates," with an embedded link. So you can go, "Oh, I have that stuff. I just finished that last Friday. Perfect. Click on this link, drop and drag that file here." Now, I fooled around with this a little bit, and I'm not convinced that website services are going to work for this. We may have to have client-side services where you would make that simpler, skinnier statewide data set. I mean, it took 13 hours to upload the skinny data set, and it didn't time out. It did upload, but it takes a long time to upload it. So, but we might want to put that on the client side and have the client run those tools on the client side and then push the skinny data up. So then the new national parcel polygon for Florida comes in. We query everything that's 12. Florida's 12, right? Let me check real quick.
Yes.
Florida's 12.
Florida's
We
12.
drop every parcel that's 12. We replace it with the new parcel 12s. We're not talking about archiving the data. We're not talking about keeping the old stuff. I'm not talking about tracking changes. This is Bart Simpson National Parcel Polygons. This is not fancy. And then we would automatically replace it in some way. And in my mind, this is a totally automated process. Of course, that's not going to happen. Of course, it's going to have human intervention as we start through it. But ideally, we would have this as a as an automated click-through service. That would be fantastic.
And Nancy, you and I had talked about this. The question always is, where does that upload occur? Because if you do it at the statewide aggregator, as you know, it becomes a 12-hour, 10, 12-hour upload on there. But if you do it at the community level, at the actual data collector, at the county level, it's a much shorter period because they're not dealing with the entire state at one time. And it becomes a question of which is more efficient on there, because you may wind up with some of these jurisdictions looking to go and do more recent updates than just once a year on there, because they may see the
Yep.
potential in this.
And I would encourage that to happen, is that I would encourage the state to set up a program where the counties contribute to the state program. So take this same concept and mirror it down to the state level and let the counties throw the data into the state data, and then just do the state data once a year.
Yeah.
I mean, the national data once a year, but let that state data become more current, because we really don't need to be relying on the national coverage for the most current data. I mean, once a year is going to be certainly sufficient for most of the decisions we're going at. And yeah, eventually, yeah, wouldn't it be great if every time a parcel changed, we pushed it to the national coverage? I'm trying to make this into achievable steps. I don't think that's real achievable. I find most jurisdictions can't submit their annexations to the census once a year. I mean, I only have a 20 to 30% participation rate in Bass, which is pretty darn simple.
Right.
And so am I going to get additional, but if the state of Florida can get after its counties and make sure that, yeah, maybe Miami gives you daily updates, but maybe Achula gives you once a year updates. I don't know what the situation is, but if the state of Florida can say, okay, this is the data set for this year that we need reported from a state equalization perspective, and we're going to snapshot this right now so we can take a look at the values across the state, and we want the same snapshot in time statewide so we can look at values consistently across the state at a point in time, and this is the date we're going to pick, and we want everybody to give us their stuff by that date. Then that's the data set that you would then simplify and then push out. I just think I think the skill sets and the resources are going to be there at the state level. I just don't think they're going to be there at the county level to begin.
Thank you.
Maybe eventually, but I don't think to begin. That's just my hypothesis. But you know what? Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. If we can do this on a county by county basis, that would be fantastic.
I can tell you from, within the state of Florida, I mean, state of Florida actually is 3 different states, and we've got these large counties which have the ability to go on a weekly basis, and medium-sized counties at once a month or so. But the smaller counties, they only send their data up to the state once a year. That's it. Even though they are still sending it to these smaller third-party website organizers, that have their websites for their public viewing sites. They do that more often, but they don't send it to the state. They don't send it anywhere where you can collect it up or see some sort of aggregation at all. So,
well, and it might not be a legitimate snapshot in time either, because I know that my county, Anderson County, South Carolina, they maintain the data pretty daily, right? But not every parcel's got a parcel identifier on it yet. It'll say just new parcel, new parcel, new parcel, because it's still owned by the developer, and it doesn't get assigned, the subdivision doesn't get assigned a new parcel until the parcel's sold. And then when that parcel's sold, it's assigned its new identifier. So the developer pays the taxes on it until the first sale. And so I don't want that data. I want them, you know what I mean? I want you've got to think about where you are in the real estate tax cycle. Where are you in the assessment cycle? And where has that data set been verified or certified at some level? so that I can say, okay, here is the statewide equalization data. Here is the certified roll. All of the data in this data set matches the roll. And for every parcel polygon that's here, there's an associated camera record. Because because those interim data sets may or may not have a camera record. And then you go in and you try to pull the camera data over and you discover, holy buckwheat, 40% of this county doesn't have value, or 40% of this county doesn't have building information. It's because the rest of the business, real estate, business cycle and the government hasn't caught up yet. But once a year, once every 6 months, or once a quarter, depending on the county, all of those things have to be brought current.
Right.
And so that's the data set that I think is most appropriate to then aggregate up, right? I mean, that would be my my personal preference, but based on the business cases, I think that would be the data that we want to have drive it.
Good.
But you could do it county by county, and let's look at that. So we did do it county by county. And if you look at that data, we have a web map for that. And again, this is on the same Esri donated server. And this is every county in Florida, county by county. Now you're going to notice some differences here. When Frank clicks on one of these parcels, you're going to notice a boatload of attributes. And this is because this is the county by county data. This has not been simplified in any way. It's an identifiable word.
Yep. I got to stop zooming.
Yep.
There we go.
So there's all of our identifiers. So that, look at tons and tons and tons of information there, right? And all good, valuable information. And you can even link through to the recorded document, and some holes in the data, and that's fine too. But you can, careful.
Yep.
Yeah, so there's some additional information there that you can get. And that's a pretty rich data set. And you'll notice that this is county by county, so each county is a little bit different. And we see this same pattern so these are state data sets. These aren't not national data sets. We see the same pattern in Arkansas and North Carolina, for example. So in Arkansas, we pulled up their viewer. Again, look at there. Rich bunch of attributes, tons and tons of attributes there. County by county. Now, in this case, the state has made a statewide database that has this high content of attributes. But this is the information you're going to want. May or may not meet all your decisions, but it's got a lot of pretty interesting information on it. And the same thing in North Carolina. You'll see in the North Carolina 1 map, they've got all of their parcels, and you'll see different cartography and different base maps, different things going on in terms of how it's presented, but buckets of attributes, not the same attributes, not the same. Although all these states have been influenced by the CAD NSDI core parcel to some extent, they're all just a little bit different, which is fine because that meets that state's business needs. That state has a requirement to run elections, to manage school districts, to manage water runoff, whatever that function is within that state. And so that state is going to aggregate those rich attributes to whatever they are. And you're right, we could go county by county, or we could do such as Arkansas and North Carolina have, which is one big database for the state.
Right.
That's done at a particular point in time, depending on the assessment cycle and the appeals cycle and the valuation cycle. But ideally, what I'd like to do at some point in time, and as we go back, let's go back to the slides for a minute. In addition to this kind of national parcel polygon hosting, I would really like to see this idea of safety net hosting. Now, I think my thing is like, this tech is not easy. Nothing about this is easy. It looks easy when you see it on the demo. It's great when you see it at the user conference slides. It's great when Frank's showing us how to do this stuff. It looks great. Somehow when you get home and you open your own computer or you turn on your own server, all manner of crap goes away, and it just like, what was that again? Like, how do I get a named user again? How come all my named user accounts are gone? How how are my credits running? And it's like, oh, I just geocoded the entire state and I just consumed 500,000 credits and I didn't intend to. All of these things happen because it's not that easy, right? There's nuances to it. I mean, that's if anybody could do it, they'd be doing it in high schools. That's why we have professionals, because it's necessary to understand the depth of this. And I don't understand the depth of it, but my idea is that we would have an open geo hub with the parcel data for the providers that don't have or don't choose to host the data for some reason, any reason, state security, maybe been ransomware, maybe you don't have the skill set in-house, maybe your web guy just quit, maybe you've got virus stuff. I mean, I worked with one jurisdiction that during the coronavirus, they couldn't get into their server room because the person that had the key to the server room was laid off during the coronavirus, and he took the keys home in his pants pocket when he was laid off, and then he left. And so nobody knew where he was, and they couldn't get in the server room. And you don't want to blow up the door of a server room because it sets off that fire suppressant stuff. So it doesn't happen a lot, but it can happen. So maybe we think of this GeoHub as a redundant backup for you to store stuff, or maybe we just see it as a safety net. And within that, we provide a basic viewer. Chris Pasquilia has written a beautiful little viewer that doesn't need a lot of customization. You can upload data in a variety of formats and the viewer will work. Maybe an open download, whatever the data provider chooses to, and a web feature service that the data can be added to people's ArcGIS or Pro map, and they can watch your data update as you choose to update it. Those are future services. Again, I'm trying to one brick at a time, one block at a time. Let's get the first block up the hill and in place before we add the second block. But these are blocks that I see as foundational blocks that we need to have at some point in time as we're building our pyramid of cadastral geospatial data. The other question is, where is it going to be hosted? So it's not going to be hosted at Fairview Industries. You can go to the next slide. I'm not going to host it. That's not happening. It's, you know, I know there are private sector people that would host it. And that might be one option. Ideally, we would find a federal agency that would be willing to, or a federal non-governmental agency that would be willing, national non-government agency that would be willing to host us. But what we're looking to have them host is a stripped down national data set, is again with the geometry, the local PIN, the state and county FIPS, or whatever the data steward FIPS is, maybe a load date. So we know when it was last updated. And then some back-end services to prompt updates, maybe some backups, and then an additional link to the data steward to get more information about it. But these data sets are huge. You do not want to say, we're going to put the data over here and then go, oh, wait a minute. No, wait, not there. Let's put it over here. Oh, wait. I mean, you're not moving the dog bed from the living room to the dining room. You are moving large gigabytes of data from place to place. You just don't want to be moving this around if you don't have to. So the new rule in my house, nothing comes in this house that weighs more than 300 pounds, period. I'm not moving any more heavy stuff, period.
Yep.
So that's it probably 200 pounds actually. But so that's something we need to decide on fairly soon. We've been doing a lot of concept testing. And again, Loveland Parcel's been, the land grid people have been very good about, very patient with me and moving things around and hosting things, and have done a lot, have been at my, have done some pretty crazy stuff that I've asked them to do just to see what would happen. And I appreciate that very much. But, and Ezra too has been very kind about accommodating my odd requests, but we're going to have to land someplace. And so my hope is, on the next slide, my dream is that by, I would hope by the 4th of July, that we would have it on the Federal Geographic Data Committee Cadastral Subcommittee GeoPortal. That doesn't exist. There is no Cadastral Subcommittee GeoPortal. I would like to see something like that created. I would like to see it hosted within the current FGDC server farm environment in some way, with linkages to open source data viewers, so that anyone can take the API for this and build their own viewers as they need them. So if there's some recreation company or some iPhone app, or if, that we can, without moving the data around, that we can enable businesses and opportunities and decision makers to link to these APIs, and even embed some open viewers within that portal. But if not, we have to find another appropriate host. So if you're in the call and you're willing to host, let me know, because we'll take you up on it for sure. So here's kind of what's next. So we need to identify the technology, and this is, again, there's a lot of heavy duty technical dudes that are working on this, men and women, that are helping to resolve the tech. It's the web map functionality, pulling from multiple data sources to show one map. Can we pull from 50 REST point services and have one map? And when we pull from those web services, filter so we only show the attributes we need, and then have it be responsive. What does it look like? What kind of tiling do we have to do, if any? That's all kind of technical stuff. We need to get the states on board. So about half the states already provide their data openly. I don't believe those states are going to be an issue. I know Arkansas has raised their hand and said, let us be first. So I very much appreciate Jonathan and Shelby on that. North Carolina is certainly ready to go. I think Florida is ready to go, Wisconsin. I know there are just some states that are willing to jump on board and be first or let us experiment with their data. There's a handful of states that have data that they could provide either all or a partial representation of their state that have not historically provided that data in a public forum, but perhaps they would be willing to provide just the geometry and the identifier for us. I won't name those states, but I've talked to 5 or 6 of those states just in the last couple of weeks, and I think they can be convinced. And then at the end, the infill data. There are just going to be some states that just flat out don't have the resources available. Their data's not there. To name names, I mean, Oklahoma and South Dakota are 2 states that I can think of that just are going to be tough to get the data. But if we can get infill data, and if our land grid partners are willing to continue to provide us that infill data, again, it wouldn't be data that you could just go to a designated data steward and then ask questions. It would have some cost associated with it, but at least it would give us that national view. Look, I want the parcel community to not be last. When we have a climate change initiative, when we have an infrastructure initiative, when we have a fair housing initiative, when we have any federal national initiative, I want us as a parcel community to be proud of the fact that we can turn to that initiative and say, count on us. We have the data. We can support that initiative regardless of the outcome. This is science, people. We're not trying to influence the outcome. We just need to be at the table. Enough decisions have been made without us at the table, and I just want us at the table. And this is one effort to bring us to the table. So that's where we're at.
Yeah. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Nancy. I think that what we're going to do here, I think we're going to cut this off as far as the workshop, and we'll stop this. We'll open up the mics, and anybody else wants to go and participate, we'll do that there. But thank you all for attending the workshop. I think it was really helpful. I think we learned a great deal. Next month at the deep dive workshop, I'm actually going to be doing a presentation on why is parcel mapping so difficult. So hopefully you can go and join in next month also. All right. Thank you, everybody. Like I said, stick around. We're going to open up the mics and continue this conversation. Thanks. Thanks for attending, and we hope you enjoyed this workshop. If you have questions, would like some more details about anything we discussed during this workshop, or if you or anyone at your organization would like information about training, support, or ways in which we can help you with your GIS needs, please contact me at frank@pandaconsulting.com or call me at 561-691-3277, and we can discuss how we can help you with your needs.